Well, good morning. How's everyone doing? We could probably just go home now, couldn't we? Because that was awesome. You know, for 23 years now, here at Cibolo Creek, we have never felt like there's anything more exciting, more rewarding, and more important than what we just witnessed. Every time we get to see somebody baptized, we get the assurance that God is using our church for the thing that we had asked God to use our church for, and that was to introduce people to Jesus Christ, lead them to a place where they would place their trust in Him, and then publicly declare their decision to follow Jesus Christ as a believer through the act of baptism. And so every baptism here at Cibolo Creek is an opportunity of celebration. I want to say congratulations to those who were baptized. Congratulations to the families of those who were baptized. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Corpus Christi to come and be with us today. And thank you that all of you were here to be a part of that. So, before we go any further, there's something that you should know that's maybe not as exciting as all those baptisms, but it's pretty exciting. We have a ministry here at Cibolo Creek that tends to our children. It's called Kids Creek. It's absolutely amazing. And every Sunday, your children get to enjoy what we like to think of as the best hour of their entire week. We have a wonderful team of volunteers that make Kids Creek possible. And they keep it fun, they keep it interesting, they keep it relevant for your kids to learn more about what it means to have a relationship with Jesus. And the people that lead our children's ministry, they like to hang out together with each other, and they like to do things that help build team among them. And one of the things that they do is that they have been the participants in a kickball league in the Bernie Recreational League. And we're here to announce that here they are. I think we have a picture of them. This is our winning champs. But they won the championship this year in the kickball league. Oh, but that's not all. This is the second year in a row that they've won the championship in the kickball league. So I like to think that Cibolo Creek, we've got a dynasty going. And we're going to expect that they continue to win, and we're excited for them. And if you want to be a part of that, then we'd love to see you help out in our Kids Creek ministry. So we're celebrating this big win for them, and we'll just kind of, you should know that the league didn't give them this trophy. We came up with this trophy ourselves. That's a big deal. So, 2 weeks ago, we started a series of messages entitled How to Be a Wise Guy, which is a look at the book of Proverbs. And so I did the first week of the series. I was very excited about it. And I was really, really excited about the second week of the series. And I had the message all prepared, had all my notes submitted to the people that need to get those in the middle of the week. And then like Thursday, something happened. My appendix decided it didn't want to play anymore on the team. And became very, very bothersome. And so a group of people got together and they decided that, they couldn't even really figure out what the appendix is there for anyways. And so we decided we'd just go ahead and remove it so that its attitude didn't infect the rest of the team and how all that was working. That all escalated very quickly. So Thursday I had surgery and we weren't sure what kind of condition I'd be on Sunday to continue the series. And so we made the decision to ask John Mark, who is our student pastor, if he would pinch hit for me, and he did an absolutely wonderful job. I had the opportunity last week. Yeah, go ahead and give him a big old round of applause. I watched both services online, and I just thought he nailed it. So let me just kind of give you the landscape now that the series, How to Be a Wise Guy, kind of got convoluted. So we did the first week of the series. I was supposed to do the second week of the series. I was unable to. And so we have this third week of the series, which is today, and it was really designed around Mother's Day kind of theme. And so we decided, let's go ahead and just keep this one here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the one that was going to be part 2. We're going to make it part 3, which was really part 4 in the weeks. And then we're going to take part 4 and we're just going to jettison it. And we'll come back to that at another time. And so hopefully we'll be able to cover some of the most important themes that I wanted to cover in this series, and we hope that you'll continue to find this very helpful. So Here's what I want to talk about today from the book of Proverbs, and I would title it this way: one of the most important lessons that every mom wishes her children would learn before it's too late. Like, I'm absolutely positive that every mom and every dad in this room, every parent, every guardian, everybody who has influence in the life of young people, there's this one lesson that every mom would like their children to learn before it's too late. Because what we're going to look at today, there is an expiration date. It is possible to go through life to a certain point and fail to understand this most important lesson, and then it gets too late in the ballgame. That you've started down a path and you've made some choices and some things are in motion and you can't come back from there. So today I want to talk about the most important lesson that every mom wishes their children to learn before it's too late. So we are in the study of the book of Proverbs, and here's basically what I want you to know about that. The book of Proverbs is a book of advice that's found in your Old Testament, about in the middle. It's one of the most fascinating books in the entire Bible, my favorite. It's a book about advice. It's a collection of observations about how life generally works. It's like somebody looked at life and saw the patterns and then wrote them down and said, these would be things for people to know for generations. And it's designed to help you and I to live our lives more wisely. Because when you take the book and you boil it down to its most important themes, there's two things that we read about in the book of Proverbs, and that is a life of foolishness or a life of wisdom. And basically the book is telling us this: you have a choice. Every human being has a choice about how they want to go about living their life. You can take the wise path or you can take the foolish path. The choice is up to you. Over and over and over again in the book, it emphasizes that you have a choice about what direction you're going to live your life. And then it kind of fills out that advice by saying that the wise path, it always ends up in prosperity. Now, not necessarily financial prosperity, although that's a part of it, but it's talking about relational prosperity, emotional prosperity, physical prosperity, all sorts of blessings that come our way if we choose to live our life according to a wise path. There's lots of good things that come our way when we choose wisdom. Or we can take the foolish path. We can ignore the advice of others. We can ignore the advice of God. We could follow our own courses, our own destination, our own decisions, and we can follow a foolish path. But what you need to know is that one always ends up in bankruptcy. Physical bankruptcy, emotional bankruptcy, relational bankruptcy, spiritual bankruptcy. Over and over again. This is the path that we see throughout the book of Proverbs. In fact, in the first week of the series, we talked about the principle of the path, which we see over and over throughout the book. And here's the principle of the path: that the direction of our life, the course that we're currently on, not our intentions, not our wishes, not our hopes, not our dreams, not even our prayers, but the consistent choice that we're making about how we're currently living our life, our direction is what determines where we ultimately end up in life. Again and again and again, it's proverbial. It is always true about the direction that we choose, not our intentions, not what we'd like to be, but our direction determines our destination. And then, just as a part of the series, as a helpful resource, I've been recommending this book to you. It's called The Principle of the Path. It's written by Andy Stanley. I don't get any kickbacks for the sale of it. So I'm just encouraging you. It's such an excellent book. And Andy Stanley just dives down into the principle of the path in a much deeper, fuller way that I think that everyone should read this book. I'm not even being dramatic there. I think everyone should read this book. I think anyone before they turn the age of 25 should have read this book, maybe more than once, because it's so essential to the entire course of our lives. We have a couple of copies for sale out in our guest center, but you can also get it online, have it delivered the next day. So I just am recommending this book. Make sense? So I have always been absolutely amazed at how the human brain works. It's a fascinating piece of divine technology. I don't think there's anything on planet Earth that's been created by human beings that even begins to compete with the human mind. And one of the amazing abilities of the human mind is not only to collect enormous amounts of data, but to process and synthesize that data in nanoseconds, just so quickly how the brain can take information and process it. And this comes in very handy when you're a parent. And let me explain to you why. My wife, Charlotte, and I, we have two sons. We have our oldest son, Paul J. He's 23 years old, just recently graduated from the University of Texas in Austin, and as of tomorrow, will have accepted his very first professional job offer, which we're pretty excited about. Yeah. Oh, shucks. Our youngest son, his name is David. He's 18 years old. He will graduate from Champion High School in about 2 weeks. And then he's headed off to the McCombs Business School at the University of Texas in Austin in the fall. And we're pretty excited about all of that opportunity for him. But there's something that Charlotte and I have always celebrated about our sons, and particularly David, because it's just so relevant to us right now, is David has always enjoyed a wonderful group of friends. And it's been the same friends for all of his life. Like ever since like first and second grade, David has always run with a really great group of friends. And they've been in classes together, and they've played sports together, and they've been in the band together, and they've been in extracurricular activities together. And we've always just been so proud of the group of young men that David runs with, and they've become like our own sons, and we just love and admire them. And so here's something that happens in our home quite frequently. David will say, "Mom, Dad, I'm going over to Marcus's house." And immediately our brain starts into motion. And it goes something like this, although you would never see it because it happens in literally nanoseconds. We go, "We know Marcus. We know Marcus's last name. I've shaken Marcus's hand. I like Marcus because he looks me in the eye when he talks to me. And Marcus will, what I call, throw the ball back. If I ask him a question, he'll ask me a question, and he at least acts like he's sincerely interested in how my day went. We know Marcus's parents. We've hung out with Marcus's parents. We, in fact, know Marcus's sisters, and we know Marcus's dog. Her name is Ruby. And from time to time, Ruby, their dog, and our dog, Amber, they get together for play dates. And Charlotte, my wife, and Marcus's mom, they get together, and they go walking together, and they catch up with one another. And so we know where they live. We've been in their house. We know how they do family. We know a lot about Marcus and his life. And Marcus is a mature and responsible, and he makes good decisions, and we like Marcus. And so when David says, "Mom, Dad, I'm going over to Marcus's house," in a split second we say, "Okay, have a good time. Tell Marcus we said hello." David might say, "Mom, Dad, Josiah and Sam and I are going to meet Jacob at Whataburger." And again, in nanoseconds, we go, "Okay, have a great time," because why? Now I got three characters. I got Josiah, I got Sam, and I got Jacob. But you know what? I know them, and I know their last name, and I know how they do in school, and I know a lot about how they go about living their life, and I've met their parents, and I've been in their parents' home, and I know where they live, and I've met some of their pets too. And so we have this wonderful sense of understanding about who these young men are. And so the only thing that really kind of slows my brain down in that process is trying to decide whether I want them to bring me something back from Whataburger or not. However, if David says, "Mom, Dad, I'm going over to Wayne's house," suddenly the process comes to a screeching halt. And a group of investigators assemble together, and they start going through the data bank, and I go, "Wayne, Wayne, Wayne, Wayne. We have no record of a Wayne," and so then there's an alert, an alarm that's set that says this is an invalid entry. And so then we go into parent mode, and we start asking questions. We go, "Wayne, hey, wait a second, Wayne, who's Wayne? What's Wayne's last name? Is Wayne a friend of yours from school? Is he in your same classes? Is he in your same grade? Have we ever met Wayne's parents? What do they do for a living? Oh, they're new to the area? What brought them to San Antonio? Where does Wayne live? What's his address?" We start asking questions like, things I want to know. It's like, oh, is Wayne a cat person or a dog person? Because this is very important to me. I want to know if Wayne is a Cowboys fan, because this is an issue of character in my book. And then I start asking some other questions like, have we received his official transcripts? Has there been a background check done? Has he filled out the 3 essay questions in cursive? And I want to know, has blood work been done and has there been a urine analysis? I want to know all these things about Wayne because why? Wayne's probably a really nice kid. It's just that I have no data on him. I don't know what kind of choices Wayne makes. I don't know what his values are. I don't know what his priorities are. I don't know what his history is. And so I don't have any data from which to decide if I trust Wayne or not. Any parent relate to this? And so we as parents, we do it for one reason. We do it because we care. We're concerned. We're just being cautious. But rarely does our teenager quite receive it that way, do they? No, they start to get defensive and frustrated and annoyed with mom and dad because they think that somehow we're trying to control them or that we don't trust them or we're trying to decide who their friends can and cannot be. And it's not that at all. In fact, it's something much bigger. It's something much deeper. It's in fact a universal principle that has been at work in civilization since time began. It's a truth that is at work in the world and has been ever since teenagers have been making decisions about who they run with. And that truth is embedded in the wisdom of the book of Proverbs. And I want to explore that with you. You see, every parent who's ever watched their child go out the door and get in the car and go somewhere, every parent works from a certain understanding. And it's something like this. The choices that you make determine the course of your life. We're very aware of this. The choices that you make determine the course of your life. And secondly, the company that you keep influences the choices that you make. Every parent understands, and probably understands it from their own experience, that the people that you have in your life have an enormous influence on the choices that you ultimately make, and those choices determine the course of your life. And sometimes a single choice can alter the rest of your life. This is behind the heart of a parent, is that we understand that life happens very quickly at times, and it just takes one poor choice and your life can be completely different. It can turn out nothing like you ever imagined or hoped. And so every time your teenager says to you, Mom, Dad, I'm going, it's this sort of thing that runs through our minds and our hearts and causes us to be cautious or concerned or careful, and that's why we ask a few questions. Does that make sense? But you know what? This is the heartbeat of the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is like a parent. It's like a mom or a dad, and it has this enormous concern for us as human beings, and it's trying to look out for us. And so over and over and over again in the book of Proverbs, we keep seeing the heart of a parent appealing to their child to say, please make wise choices. And what happens is when you study the book of Proverbs over and over and over again, because that's the way the book was designed to be handled. If you just read the book of Proverbs once, you've missed the point. It's designed to be meditated on, to be mulled over, to be kicked around and stretched and squeezed and tried to figure out. You just keep reading it over and over again. And when you do, you start realizing that some things percolate to the top and they become these enormous influences on how we understand the nature of wisdom and how it applies to our life. And so we see this heart all throughout the book on a particular theme. And so what I want to share with you this morning is after many reflections on the book of Proverbs, there's a particular theme that keeps coming up again and again and again. And I want to show it to you. And so it's in passages like this. In Proverbs chapter 1, the book, very beginning of the book, we read this, the Proverbs of Solomon. So Solomon being the author of the book of Proverbs, the one who collated and collected all these observations. The Proverbs of Solomon, who was the son of David, he was the king of Israel, for gaining wisdom. This is what the Proverbs are for gaining wisdom and instruction. It's to teach us about how to be smarter or wiser in life, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent or wise behavior, doing what is right. It's about doing what is just. It's about learning to do what is fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple. Now, that's not a derogatory term. That's simply saying to give prudence, wisdom to someone who doesn't have quite as much experience. They haven't lived life as long as the person who's giving out the instruction. Knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance for understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. So the book begins with this appeal. Please pay attention to what I have to say, because in these proverbs, you can learn how to be a wiser person. And then a very critical verse in the first chapter of the book of Proverbs. It's the fear of the Lord, a deep and profound respect for God and his place in the universe. The fear of the Lord is where all knowledge begins. You begin there. You can try to short circuit and push God out of it, but you just need to know that your categories are going to all be headed in the wrong direction. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So the book is establishing there are some people who welcome wisdom, and there are some in their foolishness say, I don't want to listen to anything anybody has to say. Nobody's going to tell me how to live my life. So we see this pattern. Proverbs chapter 1. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. In other words, they are a decoration to how you go about living your life and how people perceive you. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. This is his instruction. If people who are foolish in how they make their choices make some sort of an appeal to you, you be wise and you don't give in to them. Refuse that invitation. If they say, now let me just remind you, one of the nature of how the Proverbs work is that sometimes the Proverbs will use exaggerated language. It'll sort of use these extremes to sort of shake us by the shoulders and wake us up to what could be possible. It might not get this bad, but it is possible. And so he says, if they say, these friends, these fools that are making their appeal, oh, come on, come along with us. Let's lie in wait for innocent blood. Let's ambush some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive like the grave and whole like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and we'll fill our houses with plunder. Cast lots with us. Come on, come with us, and we will share all that we take in. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths. Don't even start down the road, for their feet rush into evil, and they are swift to make mess of things, to shed blood. Look at this, Proverbs chapter 1. For the waywardness of the simple, it will kill them. And the complacency of fools, oh, that's no big, that's not serious, just relax. The complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me, wisdom, whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease and without fear of harm. There's a certain ability to rest in your journey of life without having to fear the significant implication of serious consequences. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse, who have left the straight paths to walk in dark ways, who find joy, pleasure, laughter in doing wrong. They rejoice in perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Be careful of this person. At the end of your life, if you follow along with them, if you head down this path and get going in that direction, at the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and body are spent. You've so abused your body, you so abused your mind, you so abused your life, and you will say, oh man, I was so foolish, how I hated discipline. I wouldn't listen to anything anybody had to say. I wouldn't do anything they told me I should do. How my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers. What was I thinking all those many years ago? Whoever walks with the wise, well, they become wise. But the companion of fools will suffer harm. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. Do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their path. Don't go there. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. The mocker seeks wisdom, and he finds none because it's too late. He's mocked and made fun of the advice of others. But knowledge comes easily to the discerning. Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips. So over and over and over again, we see this theme in the book of Proverbs. It's basically saying this, the bottom line: be careful about the company you keep. Be careful about the company you keep, because you just never know the influence that a fool can have on your life. Folks, I've been a pastor now for 30 years. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat at a lunch table or in my office and somebody has said this to me: I'd give anything to go back to that day and do it all over again. A day that literally changed the entire course of their life. I'd give any amount of money. I'd do anything just to go back and make a different choice. So every time your son or your daughter is getting ready to leave your house, they're going to join up with a friend that you don't know, yes, some crazy things goes through a parent's mind. But that's because of the nature of wisdom. Because every parent knows that it's the choices of your life that determine the direction. And it can all change so quickly. And so things like this can happen. You could have a car accident. You could experiment with a drug for the first time and not completely understand the nature of your physiological makeup, and you've just started down the path of an addiction that will haunt you for the rest of your life. You could do something and get arrested, and now you have a criminal record that will follow you through every job interview that you ever have. It could result in something like a serious injury. I'll never forget a family in the last church that I served in Wisconsin. This wonderful son, teenage, goes off to camp. A few of the guys in a cabin make this choice late at night. Let's just borrow one of the camp trucks and take it for a joyride. This young man wasn't driving. He was just inside the truck. And somewhere amongst all of that, getting away with something, the decision was made: let's see how fast we can get this truck to go. And they could get it going pretty fast. In fact, they got it going so fast that they could no longer control it. And it went off the road and flipped a few times and landed up against a tree. And that young man is now a paraplegic, can't move from the neck down, and is fed through tubes because of a choice he made in the company of friends, never really anticipating how it could all turn out. It could result in things like emotional trauma, psychological scar, a sexually transmitted disease that you had never really anticipated, but will affect your capability and capacity for sexual intimacy the rest of your life. It could be a ruined reputation. Just people have heard something about you and the choices that you make, and it follows you around the rest of your life, not to mention the enormous burden of guilt or shame or fear or regret, and some choices even result in death. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, you got all of that from a kid named Wayne? And the honest truth is, yeah. Not because I want to control, and not because I want to determine your friends, but because I've read the book of Proverbs many, many times. And it's educated my mind and how I look at life and how I perceive every choice that we make. This is the possibility. And this is why parents are concerned. And this is why parents are careful. And this is why parents are cautious. When you think about what a teenager usually brings up as the rationalization for why they should be able to do things, what is the most common one? There you go. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is doing it. I should be able to go here because everybody else is going there. I should be able to do this because everybody else is doing this. I should be able to wear this, have my hair this way, do these things because everybody else is doing that. But has any parent ever really examined what that's all about? This everybody else is doing it thing? You see, what it's all about is it's about acceptance and approval. It's about the desire to want to belong, to want to be taken in by a group of people that we admire and place value in. And so we want to do what everybody else is doing because it leads us to believe that we're liked and that we're loved. You see, everybody else is doing it is nothing other than a longing for approval and acceptance. And it's at this point in the message that many of you are thinking, Paul, this is awesome. I'm really glad my teenager's with me today. Or, darn, I really wish my teenager was with me today. Or, Paul, this would be a really great message for you to share over an overflow some Sunday with all the students. But, come on, this isn't me. And I go, oh. You see, the nature of a proverb is that it's universal. And this right here is true about every one of us in this room. You see, what we need to recognize is that many adults make the grave mistake of thinking that peer pressure is just a teenage issue. And it's not. Some of the people who are most susceptible to peer pressure are people who are in their 30s and their 40s, their 50s and their 60s, and they just want to belong. And they just want to be loved, and they just want to be approved, and they just want to be accepted. And so here's my observation, is that adults are just as prone to peer pressure as teenagers, except with adults, it's only more unbecoming. Because adults ought to know better. They ought to be more mature, and they ought to be far less concerned about what other people think about them. But in far too many cases, this is not true. Adults living for the acceptance and the approval of others are just teenagers who failed to grow up. I sat in a restaurant just a few months ago with a friend of mine. If you had known him 5 years ago, you would have thought, wow, this guy's got everything. He's got a beautiful wife, got awesome kids, has an amazing house with all of the toys and everything that you'd ever imagine in an amazing house. They drive awesome cars. They go on cool vacations. They're always posting pictures on Facebook of front row seats at the best sporting events and concerts and movies and shows in town. They own their own company. They make lots and lots of money. But when you find out the truth about what's really going on, what you learn is that when that gentleman left home and went off to college, he made some friends, and they thought it was cool to drink. And he started drinking a lot in college. And when he graduated, all the friends went in a bunch of different directions, but he continued to hold a very close friendship with alcohol. And through the stress of his business and the passing of years, that dependency on alcohol became greater and greater. And under the stress of his job, it turned him into a very angry person. And then at some point in the journey, that alcohol led to an affair. And now the guilt and the shame of what he had done just caused him to drink more and more. And pretty soon, he lost it all. He lost his wife, struggles to keep the respect of his kids. He lost his company. He lost everything. And so I ask him at the lunch, I say, how's the drinking going? Like, how are you doing in your sobriety? And he goes, I'm doing pretty good. Now, this isn't my first rodeo. This isn't the first time I've had a conversation like this with someone. I say, pretty good? What does that mean? He goes, oh, I have a few beers now and then when I'm grilling out with some of my buddies. And I'm thinking to myself, are you serious? You have lost every stinking thing in your life. All of the best that life offered you, you've lost it all because of alcohol. And still, you can't go and hang out with some friends of yours without feeling like you have to drink with them? Are you serious? I wonder how many people who are addicted to alcohol continue to struggle with their addiction to alcohol only because they can't bear the thought of being at a social event without a drink in their hand like everybody else. I wonder how many otherwise sober-minded people have become alcoholics because they couldn't bear the thought of being at the club or being at the barbecue or being at the lake or being at the hunting lodge without drinking. All because of peer pressure. How many people do we know? How many people in this room? How many couples are living so far beyond their means, so deep in debt because of peer pressure? Because all their friends live in this kind of a house, and all their friends drive these kinds of cars, and all their friends wear these kinds of clothes, and all their friends go on these kinds of vacations and hang out on these kinds of places and do these sorts of things. And because of the pressure of their peers and longing to be accepted and longing to be approved by their friends, they find themselves so far in debt trying to live a life that they can't really afford. And in the end, that stress, that fear, that guilt ends up wrecking their marriage. And pretty soon their home is falling apart. All because of peer pressure. It is not a teenager thing. It is a human thing. And the book of Proverbs is trying to stand in our path and say, oh, please be very careful about the friends you choose and what they invite you to do, because it can have an enormous impact on the entire course of your life. Proverbs says this: where there is no guidance, where you don't have people who love you enough to guide you in the right direction, a people, an entire nation can fall. We're watching this happen in the United States of America, but it can also happen in our lives individually as people fall because we don't have solid guidance. But in an abundance of counselors, people who offer us wise and sound advice, there's safety. I don't have to worry about what's going to happen because of the kind of choices I'm making based on the kinds of people I have around me. Proverbs chapter 18, one who has unreliable friends will soon come to ruin. It's universal. It will ultimately catch up with each one of us. But there is a friend. It's possible to have the kind of friend who sticks closer than a brother, who's not going to let us make those kinds of choices that take us in places we don't want to be. Proverbs chapter 27, as iron sharpens iron, so is the value of one person sharpening another person. So over and over and over again, the book of Proverbs says this: the friends you choose have a profound influence on your life, so choose wisely. I don't care if you're 13 or if you're 23 or if you're 45 or if you're 58 or if you're 62. Choose your friends wisely, because the book of Proverbs is trying to help us understand how significant that is to the entire course of our life. In the end, the book is saying this: wise people don't hang out with foolish friends. So can we be really candid here for a minute? I'm asking for your permission. If God, through the eternal wisdom captured in the book of Proverbs, is saying again and again and again that wise people don't hang out with foolish friends, then you are a wise person when you make the careful choices of who exactly you spend most of your time with. And if that's true, then it's possible that some of us in this room are going to have to make some hard choices about what friends we're going to allow to have influence in our life and how much time we allow them to have in our life and how much of our energy that we allow to have them. And so it's possible that in this room, if we hope to be wise, we might have to start making some choices between what amount of influence some people are allowed to have in our life. And I know that sounds awfully exclusive, but it's not exclusive. You know what it's called? It's called wisdom. It's being careful about the company that you keep, because the company that you keep has a profound impact on the choices that you make, and the choices that you make determine the direction of your life. So I'm just going to tell you, I don't care what age you are, and this is for me as much as for anybody in the room. If you have friends that encourage you to break the law, let me net that out. If you work for a company and the culture of the company and the ethic of the company encourages you to cut corners legally, do things that the company's attorneys and accountants will sort of cover you for, then you need to find a new place to work. If you have friends encouraging you to do something that is contrary to the law, you need some new friends. If you have friends who cause you to compromise your convictions, you need some new friends. If you have friends who are causing you to jeopardize your integrity, you just need to know that there's a point when you jeopardize your integrity that there's no going back, there's no recovering. It's so broken now you can't fix it. If you have friends who are causing you to violate your vows to your spouse, you need new friends. If you have friends who are asking you, inviting you, creating resources for you to harm your health by what you put in your body and what you do with your body, you need some new friends. And if you have any friends who lead you to forsake your faith in God, you need new friends. It's just that clear. If you hope to be a wise person, now I know you can say, preacher, I appreciate your passion. Thanks for all your enthusiasm here today, but yeah, I like my friends, and I'm loyal to my friends. I go, okay, it's your choice. It's your choice. But just know this. The Proverbs are universal, and God will not be mocked. You make the choice. You have to live with the consequence. I wish you could see the look on your faces, because I know what's happening right now. You're ticking down through the list of all your friends. Ooh, it's like my appendix. No, that one's got to go. No. How badly do you want to be wise? Now, because of time, I'm going to skip stuff, all right? So just ignore this really good material that I had. Okay, it's awesome. So let me just get to this. Here's some suggestions that I would make about the kind of friends every one of us needs. Everyone needs some friends who offer unconditional love and acceptance. These are people who accept you for who you are and where you're at, how you are. They just accept you for you. You need the kind of friends who give you this unconditional love, acceptance, that you don't have to perform for their approval. You don't have to perform for their acceptance, because that's just exhausting. Every one of us needs some friends who just accept us for who we are, but friends who love us enough not to leave us where we are. So we need some friends who will give us heartfelt encouragement and support. They'll draw out the best in us. They'll invite us to change and to grow and to become. And then they'll be our biggest fans on the journey. They'll be in our corner, making sure that we're making progress toward the things that we know to be valuable. And then you need some friends who will give you honest advice and honest counsel. In other words, they'll tell you the truth. There's nothing about being honest and telling someone the truth that means you have to be mean, rude, insensitive. But people who will tell you the last 10%, who won't put up with your BS, who won't accept your excuses and your rationalizations, who won't excuse your lack of self-discipline, they're going to call you to make the changes that you need to make, and they'll give you honest feedback about becoming the kind of person that you are. The book of Proverbs tells us this. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. A friend at times will say things that hurt, but that's what makes them such great friends. But profuse are the kisses of an enemy. An enemy will just tell you what you always want to hear. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. This is the kind of friends that all of us need in our life. Does that make sense? It's a lot to think about, isn't it? So like 2 years ago, I was asked to do a funeral for a young man who died tragically. And on that particular day, this room was full of his friends and his peers, 18 and 19 and 20-somethings. And I just felt like God wanted me to talk to them. Of all the people in the room, I just felt like there was a part of what I wanted to share that needed to be shared with the 18s and the 19s and the 20-somethings. But I didn't want to come across as the preacher. And they were all sort of all sitting over on this side of the room that day, and I just looked at them and I said, I want to tell you something, but I'm not telling you as the preacher. And I'm really not even telling you as a parent. I'm just telling you as a person. You are embarking on a wonderful journey in life. And the path that you're on is going to take you to some exciting places. And you're going to meet some amazing people. But there's some things I want to tell you about what's on the road up ahead. And it's not because I'm smarter than you. It's not because I'm more brilliant than you. It's not even because I'm more mature than you. That has nothing to do with it. It only has to do with one thing, and that is I have a little bit more experience. At age 56, I've just been on this road a little bit longer than you have been. Because you're only 18 or 19, that doesn't make you stupid. It just makes the experience is limited. I've climbed a few mountains and I've waded through a few valleys that you don't even know are on the path. And so let me share with you a few things that you need to understand about what's ahead of you. And it's in that spirit that the book of Proverbs speaks to each one of us here today, because the book of Proverbs has been around since the foundations of the earth. The wisdom of God has been around since the time that before the time that human history even began. And God in his wisdom is simply saying, let me speak to you because I've been around longer than you have. And the book of Proverbs tells us this, and I'll close. Whoever scorns instruction will pay for it. But whoever respects a command will be rewarded. You see, folks, Proverbs are universal truths. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter what generation you're in. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your station in life. Proverbs are universal truths. You're not going to outsmart it. You're not going to end run. So you have a choice. If you're 13, if you're 30, or if you're 83, you have a choice. You can ignore everything I said here today. Or you could take it to heart. And you could become a wise person. Or you could say, preacher, you don't know what you're talking about. I got this all handled. I'm good. Just know this. The consequences are a hard pill to swallow. And regret is a really lousy bed to lay on for the rest of your life. So what do you say we choose to be wise? Let me ask you to stand. Let me pray for you. Our Father in heaven, thank you for your eternal love, your care, your compassion, your concern that you would share with us your wisdom. You'd write it down so we could read it again and again and again. God, I pray that you'll find in this room many wise people who make very discerning and careful choices about the company that we keep and the kind of influence that our friends have on our faith, our marriage, our health, our integrity. Help us be wise people, I pray and ask in Christ's name. Amen. All right, gang. Have a great week.